go ahead and share my screen. Yeah, let's confirm you can see my screen. Then I'll just go ahead. Maybe thumbs up or something.
We can see it.
All right, thank you. So yeah, Pattaya has laid a very good foundation. Now we've talked about how AI can actually affect your work, how AI come in, being a BI developer in the era of AI. Now we are going to talk about understanding Power BI MCP server, which is one of the AIs that we now have in place to actually incorporate into our work as a BI developer. So let me just go to the next page now. So this is our agenda for today. We are going to know what is MCP. MCP is Model Context Protocol, Power BI MCP Server Overview, then the Modeling MCP Server Deep Dive, and the Remote MCP Server Deep Dive as well, and then some real-world use cases, and then we're now going into the actual demo and how to actually use Power BI Modeling MCP Server. Now, what is Model Context Protocol? It's an open standard that was released by Anthropic in 2024 that defines how AI interacts with external tools, data sources in a structured and secured way. Now, just like ChatGPT, OpenAI released ChatGPT, it's the same way Anthropic also released Claude, and of course, they are actually the forerunner when it comes to MCP. Now, think of MCP as your USB Type-C for AI. That's a standard connector for many tools, right? You know, with your Type-C charger, you can, iPhone now come with your Type-C, you can connect to it with your Android phones, with even some power bank now. In fact, some chargers now are Type-C to Type-C. So think of MCP as a connector. And since you are Power BI developers, you can also think of your MCP as your data source connector, your Excel connector, your SQL server connector, your Azure connector, right? So you know that when you are trying to connect to data source, you have your Power BI desktop, you have the connector that is built into your Power BI itself, and then the data source itself. So what is in between your Power BI desktop, your connector, and then the data source is what your MCP is, right? So in this case now, we are talking about MCP in Power BI. So in this case, we are going to have your AI application where you have the MCP server itself. We are going to be using the VS Code, and then we have the client, which is the MCP server that we are going to be using, and then the server itself. So literally, you have your Power BI desktop as the tool, and then you have your VS Code where you have your Gen AI solution, which is the MCP server. And then what the MCP server is doing is that it's serving as a bridge between your Power BI desktop or even your Power BI service or Fabric environment, and then it's able to connect into it. Now, Microsoft provides two different MCP servers for different scenarios. We have the Modeling MCP server and also the Remote MCP server. The Modeling MCP server runs locally, and that is what we are going to be spending our time on today. And we are going to be doing demonstration around it. Now, the Remote MCP server is the one where you are interacting with your Power BI service, your Power BI online. So with your MCP server, you can actually create and update semantic model. You can manage your tables, you can manage your columns, even rename your columns, then bulk operations, and then work with various Power BI files. You know, what we are used to is PBIX. Now we have PBIT, we have PBIP, we have PBIB. So you can use your native MCP server, the modeling server, to actually do some of these things. So you need to build and modify various aspects of your development. Whereas your remote MCP server allows you to query your semantic model. Now, somebody was asking a question in the chat about, let me see the question now. The question is, you mentioned AI chatbots for BI development. How about AI chatbots for user interaction? Now, with your remote MCP server, you can have a chatbot for user interaction. We are not going to touch on that because the configuration, there are still issues from the development side, not from our side. So there are still issues with the remote server currently. So once that issue is resolved, then you can use remote MCP server as your user chatbots. Now, when you talk about user chatbots, you are thinking about, okay, which quarter or which region is performing better, or which region is bringing in the most sales. So those are the kind of things that you expect as a user. So with your remote MCP server, you can actually build things like that. All you have to do is to point your IDE into the exact semantic link that it is. And of course, the easier way to go about that is that there are now data agents within Microsoft Fabric. You can build data agents on top of your semantic model, and then people can use that data agent, embed into their teams. They can even call that data agent from Copilot Studio as a custom agent, and then you have that user chatbot that you are asking for. You mean? So basically, these are the two official servers that we have: the modeling server, which is the on-prem one, sort of, and then the remote server that you can use to interact with your Power BI service. So let's go to the next slide now. Now, the capabilities of this MCP server are actually a lot, but these are some of them. Natural language editing, you can create, like I said earlier, you can create updates, manage, and even columns measure using conversational command. So I can just type, as you are going to see shortly, that, okay, create this table for me, adjust this measure for me, and all of that. Typically, the way most of us work right now is that, okay, you go to your external tool, your ChatGPT, or you go into your Cloud or whatever GenAI that you are using. Say that, okay, I'm trying to write the max sale in this region for 3 years ago. Can you help me write the DAX for that? Then you go into your ChatGPT writes the DAX for it, and then you're coming back into your Power BI desktop in your development environment, and then you write that DAX there. But you don't have to do that. As you are typing it, then it's been updated in real time, even in your development environment. Also, you can use it to perform some bulk operations. Maybe you have a number of measures that you want to rename. Maybe you want to add comment to your measures. Then you can do that as well. Another thing you can use it for is best practice application. You have a Power BI that has been developed, and maybe in the course of development, some things were not followed as far as best practice is concerned, or it's a Power BI development that has been created by another person, and then you need to check if all the best practices have been obeyed in the development. You can also use that as well. Then the agentic workflow, that is the asynchronous application that Fatai was talking about earlier, that the agents just keep taking actions on your data based on the access that you've granted it. Then you can also use it for DAX query validation. Maybe you've written a query yourself, then you want to say, okay, this query, can you optimize it better for me for better model performance, or to write it correctly in a better way? Then Copilot DAX generation as well. So these are some of the capabilities that you can have with your MCP server. Then the remote server, that was the one I said you can use it to create a user chatbot. So because what you are going to have typically is you publish your semantic model, you publish your report, and you know when you publish any Power BI report, 2 items are published together with it, the report itself and then the semantic model. So you can connect into this your semantic model remotely, and then you start to ask your question. So for example, now a user can ask that, what were the sales in Q3? And of course, you are using your VS Code as your chatbot now, and then it connects to this API endpoint, the api.fabric.method.com, which we are going to see shortly, and then it can generate that for you, or you can just get the result depending on who is actually prompting the question. So these are some of the available tools that you can also use as well. Now, use cases. There are so many use cases that you can have with MCP server. You can use it for bulk renaming. You have a lot of measures. You can use that. For example, you can rename all measure with sales prefix to revenue. So let's say somebody has created it, then it's saying sales underscore, then the name of the measure itself. Then you can just change it to revenue instead of having to go into each of the measures one after the other and correct them. And also your model documentation. It can actually document your model for you so that it's easier for you to troubleshoot, document relationship, your measure logic, and even your data source. And then you can have that as a markdown file, or if you want to have it as part of your Power BI file. Then best practice audits, you can use it to check existing reports. Maybe somebody is saying that, oh, they have this particular report, 1,000 people are consuming this report, but the report is slow. What can we do to optimize it? Then you can subject this particular report to best practice audit. Then also you can use it for calendar table scaffolding, as we are going to see very shortly. You can use it to create your date table, your column, create all manner of things that you can create with MCP server. So these are some use cases for the MCP server that you run locally. Also, we have use cases for the remote server. So like I talked about, I think I talked about the custom AI agent already. So when you have this agent, you can integrate it into AI Foundry. Now, Microsoft Foundry, not Azure AI Foundry. And then you can integrate it into your GitHub Copilot as well. Also, you can use it to do your self-service analytics. That's a custom chatbot as well. So that someone that is not technical just wants to know that, okay, how does the sales compare in North region in 2024, in 2025? Then you can also have some automated dashboard diagnostics. So for example, why does this dashboard look wrong? So you can have that as well. Then conversational BI, so where you can just say that, okay, give me this, give me that. What are the top 5 products? Those are the kind of question that you can use for this particular set of use cases when it comes to remote server. Now, your remote server will only work when you gotten your semantic model done properly. If you have a terrible semantic model, then what you're going to have on your remote server is not going to come up good. And that is the point where what I was trying to say, that AI cannot take our work. So if you are saying what are the top 5 products by revenue, and then your model has 2 dimensions for product table, then your model is confused. Then when somebody is using this Power BI remote server, then the answer they get back is not going to be correct. So these are some of the instances where human face is actually needed in any of these use cases. And also you can even automate diagnosis dashboard with this MCP server. But in reality, the suggestion that he's giving you is something that you might have implemented already and is just hallucinating and does not even know what is actually going on. Then you need human representation to go in there and actually troubleshoot what is going on. Now let's go into the actual demonstration. What we are going to need really for the desktop, which is what we are going to do today, I think we can just use the GitHub Copilot in VS Code. So we have to install your VS Code, and then when you have your VS Code installed, then you start to install some of the extensions that you have available in VS Code for MCP server. Then the remote server, I'll just brush on it briefly and then we can continue. So I'm going to switch my screen now. So let me know what you can see. If you can see my VS Code, then we are good. All right, fantastic. Lawrence, I think I see your hand up. Do you have a question, or that to signify that you can see my VS Code? All right, thank you. So now this is your VS Code. I know that we are Power BI developers. One of the things that people don't like is that they don't want to use VS Code, or they are overwhelmed by the idea of VS Code, or the name just VS Code, because people don't want to code. And then maybe sometimes for some persons, when they are choosing what they want to do in tech, I'm looking for a tech role that does not require coding. Now you're talking about VS Code. Don't worry, we are not using code. We just use it as an interface to actually consume MCP server. So once you have your VS Code installed on your device, you have a number of tabs here, right? So you have the extension tab. So on this extension tab, you need to search for GitHub Copilot. GitHub Copilot. Yeah, so you have GitHub Copilot. I have it installed already. So if you don't, you can just click on install, then it will be installed for you. Then you also need to install GitHub Copilot Chats. So making second extension you are going to be installing. And then the main extension you need to install here is your Power BI MCP modeling server. And this is our guy. So this is what you need to install. Like I said, you are the BI developer. You use your natural language in a chat form powered by a particular LLM, as we are going to see shortly. Then the MCP server itself serving as a bridge between you, the developer, and your development, either in your Power BI desktop or in your Fabric workspaces, or even your PBIP file. So these are some of the things that you can do. It is well documented. You can teach. So once you also have it here, I have it installed already, so there is no point. So I won't just uninstall it. So you can just install it. So once you have these 3 things installed, then you are good to go. So after you've installed it, let's just collapse this so that we can have more space. And I'll just close this tab right now. Yeah, so you either have your chart here, depending on your visual code configuration. If you have this, you can open a new chart here, and then you have this. So these are some queries that I've done today while preparing for this session, right? So you have this place where you can just type your question. Now, there are a number of LLMs that is available from GitHub Copilot, and that is the beauty of using GitHub Copilot. You have access to a lot of them. Earlier, Fatai was asking, is it Claude? Is it Gemini? Is it ChatGPT? With your GitHub Copilot, then you have access to a number of them. So you can see the number of large language models they have access to. You see the GPT model, you see the Claude model, you see the Gemini model, and all of that. And then you have the agent model. Now, for you to use MCP server, it is important that you put it on agent mode. And why agent mode? What agent means is that it's able to take action based on your prompting on your Power BI file. So it has to be on your agent mode. So you need to select agent mode after you open up your chart. Now, for those that are installing VS Code for the first time, is that you see the chart icon here to open your chart. Let me just close this and take it again. Is that you see it on the top of your screen right here, or you see it just here as one of these tabs. So what if you have your chart here, you can just pin it here, but I think I prefer my here, so I will just leave it here. So I'll open up my chart. Now I have my chart open. Now let's just create a simple Power BI reporting, and then we will use MCP server to interact with it. Now I'm opening up my Power BI. This is a blank report, nothing in here. So I'm going to just use the sample data that is available. Then I'll load the sample data, and then we can now interact with it with Power BI MCP server. So it's a financial data. So now I'll just click on load. I don't have to do anything with Power Query. So now we have the data here. Some of us may be familiar with this set of data. So you have this data in here, right? Now let me just expand this. So these are all the columns that you have. You have the country, then you also have the metric, you have your profits, you have your date column, you have month name, and all of that. You have discounts, you have gross sales and sales price. So these are the columns that you have in this data set. Now I want to create a report for this data set. What I need first are my measures. Another thing I will need is my date table. Now, how does MCP help in this report development without me having to start creating my date table from scratch, having to start writing my measure all over? So is my voice still breaking? Am I very audible? Okay, thank you, Delvis. Okay. Okay, thank you, Yomi. So let me just continue. Now, this assuming you are working on the Power BI development, and then you have your data loaded into your Power BI desktop, and then you want to start working, right? Now, remember we have our VS Code also open. Let me just minimize this so that we can see the two at the same time. Then I will put it right here. Now, all I need to do is I will just, in natural language, I'll just type connect to open Power BI desktop file. And then I'll click on send. So it's just like your regular chat GPT or something that you are using. So now it is working. So it's trying to connect to the Power BI file that I have open. Now, the way I set up my own VS Code is such that at every point, I'm going to approve any alteration that MCP server is going to be doing to my actual report. So I need to click on allow before it's going to connect into it. So it's saying that performs operation on Microsoft Tabular semantic model data source connection, either to your desktop, analysis service, or even your Fabric environment. Now, this is possible because I have installed 3 extensions, the GitHub Copilot, the GitHub Copilot chart, and most importantly, the Power BI MCP server. So without it, it's not going to work. So you can see that it's saying that it is running Power BI modeling MCP server. So then I can click on allow. Then let's just wait a few seconds, and then, so it's saying that I found an open Power BI desktop instance. Now I will connect to it. I'll click on allow again, and then it's going to connect to this report. Now, if you pay attention closely, you see that up here, my report does not have a name. So it's saying that I have just one Power BI report here that is untitled until I save it. So it's suggesting to me already that I can create various Power BI modeling operation, query my table, measure, column, and all of that. Now, the first operation I want to find out is that I want my MCP server to actually create the measure for me based on the data that is available. So I'll just say in natural language that look at the data sets and create relevant measures. Now hit enter to send it right there. So see, there are a lot of operations that is happening at the same time. So I will just click on allow. I will click on allow. And then let's pay attention to our table in here and see if there are going to be measures added to the model. So I'll click allow again. So you see, perfect. I can see this financial sales data set. Let me create relevant measures for business analysis. So I will create measures for key metrics like total sales, total profit margin, and all of that. So you just keep clicking allow, and then you respond as the case may be. Yes. So are you sure you want to perform operation that will modify your database? So literally it's asking that should it proceed with adding measures into our module itself. So I'll respond. So I'll click on yes. No, this is very important before you go and do something that will cost you a lot of things. Now, boom, you can see that. So these are the measures. It created 13 measures for me. And if you look at the table right here, you can see that without having to create anything, I have a number of measures already. I mean, there is no way I could have written 30 measures in just 10 seconds now. So these are the measures that it has created. Already, without even thinking too much, I have created a number of measures that are relevant. Now, where this is important, again, where this thing cannot take your work is that you can create this measure, but are they correct? You need to review it. And that is why you need to know that for yourself. You need to know these basics for yourself. So we can start to inspect this measure one after the other. So look at this, it's calculating the average profit per unit. Now, it has calculated total profit. So that means before I can validate this, I need to understand what the measure that was used for this total profit. So let me look at the total profit measure in here. So typically, of course, some of the profit column is what is going to give me total profit. Now, the other measure I was checking is the average profit per unit. So definitely it's going to be the total profit divided by the total number of units sold. From our data set, you can see the total sales, and then you can also see the units sold. Now you can see how fast it is I'm able to create 13 measures. Now, some of the development best practices is that you want to always group your measures into a table so that it's not lumped together with the actual column of your data set. So let me just pull back my VS Code. And then in my VS Code, let me bring it up here so that we can all see better. And I'll just tell it that group my measures into a dedicated table. And I need to give it permission again. I'll allow for that operation to take place. Now, the interaction between my Power BI desktop and my VS Code is powered by the MCP server. So three players here, the IDE where we are having the conversational chats in natural language, the Power BI desktop itself, and then the MCP server that serves as connector between the natural language I'm typing and the Power BI desktop. Then I'm going to just allow also, and then let's see if it's going to do that for me. Now you can see that I have like a sort of notification. Yes, I'll click on allow, and then I'll also click on refresh. Then let me open back my VS Code. So now, boom, you can see now we have a dedicated table of our measures. So you don't have to go all over the place to start looking for measures. So you can see that it has grouped this for us in a very neat way. So you have all your measures in a dedicated table that you can easily just go through them. Another thing that you want to do for this report development is that you want to have your date table. Why? Because on your data set itself, there is a date calendar table. So let's take, there's a date column, and then it has created some columns in here. So, but then best practice require that you create a date table. So let me go back to my table view. Then I'll pull up my VS Code again, and I'll just tell VS Code to create a date table for this model. And of course, I'll allow this operation to take place as well. Now, again, the human factor here means that you need to always validate that what is happening is correct. Now, I want to make an adjustment. So just to be sure, I will respond. Then I will select yes once I'm prompted, and then it will add my date table. Now, you can see that this is faster compared to me going to my ChatGPT or my Gemini or whatever Gen AI that you are using to say that, oh, create a date table for me. This one has the context of your data set for this operation to take place. So I'm just going to select allow and then wait for the date table. So we can see now that we have a date table in our model. So I'll just click on refresh. Now, just for the sake of we can see now that we have a proper date table. Now, is this date table good? Fantastic. This is a very good date table. I mean, you couldn't have written this measure yourself, or this DAX yourself rather, in a very short while. But with our MCP server, you see that we've created a date table. Now that you've created a date table, the next thing you want to do typically is that you want to create a relationship between your date table and also your actual table. Can MCP also undo this? We are going to find out shortly. However, before we proceed and do that, there is an issue with this date table, which is where AI cannot take your job, like I always like to emphasize. Now, let's go back to the actual data in here. So if you look at the year column that we have, then you can see that you have 2013 and 2014 as just the year. And then if you go back to the date table that was created with MCP, you can see that it has declared the minimum date and the maximum date. So that means if I go into my report and I create a simple slicer, let me just create a slicer, and then I come into my date table and I pick year, it shouldn't submit. So let me go back to my table view, and then I'll just pick here. Now this is happening because it's just in integer, so it's sum. So let's just change it to don't summarize, and then we'll go back and create that slider so that you see what I'm trying to explain. Now I'll pick here. Now you can see that we have 2013, 2014, 2015. But in reality, when we come back to our data, we have just 2 years, which is 2014 and 2013. So if I've created my report and then I'm trying to use my slider and I pick 2015, then my report goes blank. There is a better way to undo this. So that is where you now need to adjust this date table to actually just pick the exact number of years, because the minimum date here is 2013 and then the maximum date here is 2015, whereas our data just has just 2013 and 2014. So what we can do, you can just tell your MCP server to use the max dates and min dates of my data to create dates, create the date table. Now, human wise, you can easily just change it to 2013 and 2014. But what if it is more than that, or you are not even able to scroll through your entire data? Then you don't want to do that sort of hard coding. You want to make it as dynamic as possible. If you even hard code it right here, what if your data is going and then you have a situation whereby your data table does not cover the new year or the most recent data in your model? So let's see what this is doing. So I'll click on allow, and then we'll see if it's just going to update the DAX formula that has been written for date table. So the MCP server is working, and also the Meetup Copilot is working as well. So I will click on allow. I don't want to use this JSON, but let me see what it's going to turn out. Otherwise, I'll just proceed for other things that you can use it for. So let's give it a few more seconds to quickly fix that. I know the fix, but then let's see how it's going to work. Click on refresh, then I'll open that again so that we'll see what is going on. So sometimes your prompting might be the issue, but however, you can already see some of the things that the MCP server can do for us. So I'm not sure what we asked it for has been done. So what I'm just going to do is I'll just start all over again, connect to open Power BI file. Okay, so I'll click on allow and then I'll wait. One thing that is interesting is that before this call, I tried this thing and then it worked perfectly. But now on the call, it's just acting up, which is one of those things. So basically, we are going to just use it to figure what is going on. Yeah, so this is already in use now. I'll just tell you to delete this existing table, delete the existing dates table, and create a new dates table using the dates, using the date column from the data set to create this date, this date table. Ensure the date table is using the max and min dates in the data sets. So now you can see that I have a better prompt. Now let's see if it's going to work just the way I expect it to work. So let's give it a few more seconds to process that. Or if you can write it faster, then you can go ahead. Okay, by show of hands, let me know if you can still hear me. We are still following what we are doing here. Or just thumbs up is fine. Fantastic. So now it has created a variable for the mean financial data and then the max. So this is what I'm expecting really. Okay, thank you, Habib. What I'm expecting for it to be updated with, not the hard-coded value. So it's not doing that automatically. So I'll ask you to do the clean up and use the new dynamic dynamic dates variables in the dates table. So I'm going to allow for that to take place now, and then I want this to actually be updated. Then I'll just continue. Allow again. Okay, let me just delete this table manually and then we just do it. Oh, okay, it has created the date table actually, just that I was fixated on this. So if you look at here, you see we now have two date tables. So this is the old date table that is hard coding the variable. And then this is the new date table that is here. So what we then need to do is that we can delete this old table now manually from here. And then we just have this. So this now is looking at the data set itself so that if tomorrow the data go beyond 2014, 2015, 2016, then this date table will continue to also dynamically expand to fit into the actual need of the data sets in your model. So now we have the date, a proper date table. Then the next thing is you have your modeling tab as well. You can see that you have a dedicated table for measures, and then you have your date table right here. And also you have your actual facts table, which is the financial data table. Then we need to connect these two tables. Of course, you can easily just drag this table. So I can just, now I'm being lazy, I can just ask ChatGPT to create relationship for me. Create relationship between date table and the financial data table and the financial. So let's see if that is going to happen. This is my date table. Then let me pull up my VS Code. Okay, that is not happening. So I can just drag it and do it myself anyway. So I just pick my date column from here and connect it into my dates. Then we are fine. So now we're able to create a number of measures, we're able to also create date table as well. Now, another thing I can do is that I can open up my VS Code and say that add description to all my measures. So this helps with documentation. So if you have a particular set of measure that you need to work with, and then you want to just come back to it, and then maybe you're handing over to another person so that they understand what is going on. I'm going to click on allow. Then so let me see my measure now. Another use case is that you can use it to create documentation for your measures. Let me see if they are here. These are some use cases I used before this call, but then for some reason it's not just coming up right now. So let me just see. I think it's from model view that you see that. The measures. Yeah, so these are the measures here. See the synonyms, then description, average profits units sold, and average sales as well, and the discount. This is the average discount percentage and description. Now I can say let the description be more let descriptions be more extensive And let me add measure here. So for good prompting. So it's updating these measures now with a comprehensive and detailed description, and then we are going to see the difference between what was created initially and what is being created right now. So I'll click on allow. All right. But then the description are just enough. So, and of course, you can add as much description if you want for yourself. Now, another very use case that you can use your MCP server for is optimization. So one of our previous meetup, we had this challenge where we did optimization. So I'm going to download this report now. The challenge then was to actually optimize this report and make it faster. So we have these reports. The current issue is that this dashboard is taking 10 to 15 seconds, and then the model size is about 192 megabytes. How can we optimize this using MCP server? So now what I'm going to do is that I have this server open. So let me just close this one now. Then I'll download this file or this measure. So you can just, let me drop this into our charts for those that didn't have access to it the first time or that didn't participate in this challenge. So I'll drop this into the charts. Then you can use that to access the file. So you can just click on the file. You get the Power BI file here. Then you can download it and then you can use it to actually follow through if you want, or just go through it later. So I have it downloaded in my own device. So this is it. So I have a copy of it. Now I'm duplicating this file because at the end of the optimization, I should be able to see improvements, because the challenge here is we want to be able to optimize performance and also reduce the size of the Power BI model. Now I'm duplicating because I want us to compare our output with MCP server with the original file that we got from this repository. So let me open this up now. And then also I'll just close my VS Code and open it all over again since it's acting up, so that I know exactly that it is a brand new one. So my Power BI file is also being open now. So let's just wait for it to be open. So once you open your VS Code, this is what it looks like typically. Then you open your charts. Then you open a new chart. So use the cross icon here to create a new chart, basically. So new chart. Now, first off again, let me just move this Power BI file to our screen. Oh, sorry. This is the Power BI file that I downloaded. So this is the file. Now, let's look at this file critically. First off, let's go to the table. These are the tables that we have. We have all sales table, which I suppose is the main table. We have the date table that has been created. We have the geography table. We have the international sales table. We have the manufacturer table, product table as well. We have the transform sample by table, and we have this calendar table. And I think we go to the all sales table. This is a calculated column. It's a unit price, which is not supposed to be. Then we have a year column also, which is also calculated column that was extracted with DAX. So what I want to do is that I want to optimize this report. So these are some of the areas that we know that need optimization. And also on the modeling side of things, so you can see that on the model, we have some bi-directional relationship. This model, for example, let me zoom in so that we can see a lot better. So we have this bi-directional relationship model, which is not supposed to be, and then it's also a many-to-many relationship. And the same thing here between this transform file and also this geography file. Now, what I'm going to do is that I'll pull up my VS Code. Let me minimize and place it just over this Power BI report. Then I'll just say connect to open Power BI file. Then I'll just wait for the connection to be initiated. Now click on allow. I'll click on allow again. Now you can see that successfully connected to your Power BI file. This is the name of my report, right? So the connection has been established. Now you can use it to perform operation. So what I'm going to ask you to do is that look at this file for Power BI development best practices. So let's see what is going to come back. Let me just edit this. Look at this open file, open Power BI file rather, open Power BI file. Look at this open Power BI file for best practices or best development, for development best practices, and list optimization potentials for improved performance and model size. So let's just give it some time. So it's trying to gather information about this file now, even beyond what the eye can see immediately. So I'll just keep clicking on allow so that we'll see what is going on. So it's going through the table operations, measure operations, and every development area that needs to be checked. So the MCP and the chart is still working. So I'll just click on allow to ensure that it has checked through my entire model. Now, the way you know that your model is actually very problematic is how long it's taking to actually figure what is going on. Now our output is back. So you can imagine. Now you can see the critical issues that you have: data duplication, separate facts table. So you have your US sales, national sales table. You also have the all sales table. So these are some of the issues. Then you have calculated column that should be measures. So for example, here in all sales table, like I was showing us earlier, the unit sales does also be, and then unused template file, the transform file should not be part of our model in the very first place. And then of course, it's pointing to some bi-directional relationship as well. So high priority for optimization. You see we have redundant column also, and then measure optimization. You can see about 8 to 9, more than 8. We have about 12 things that we can actually optimize to improve this. Now it's asking, would you like me to implement these optimizations? And I'll say, yes, please. So now already this Power BI file is this Power BI file is being checked for some of these optimization, and then it's going to implement it for us. So let's just give it some seconds, and then it's going to create the optimization for us. So I'll just keep clicking on allow, and then of course it's going to yes, and I'll click on yes right here. And I'll click on allow again. Now you can see that your Power BI report is running into problem already. That's because you allowed this to take over your development. Yeah, let me click on allow. So you can see a number of things that are happening on the background. So at the end of the day, we are going to just generate like a summary of some of the implementation that has taken place with this prompt. Yes, I want to allow again. So if you expand on this, you can see some of the things which are the to-do list for the optimization. It has deleted some of these duplicate tables and allow. Again, deleted year column, calculated column, which of course we know that is going to increase the model size. Created year and unit price as measure instead of as calculated column. I'll click on allow. Now it's trying to fix the bidirectional relationship as well. So these are some things that has been implemented. I'll click on allow. Now it's trying to also fix some of the measures that we have in here. Yes. So it's a lot of operation happening at the same time. So you just have to be patient. And then when it's done, then we look at our model once more. So 6 out of 8 to-do lists. Yeah. Moving on. I will allow again. Allow. Now this is the optimization is complete. It's just giving us a summary of what is going on. Let me just expand on this so that we can see better. I think it's just fine. We leave it this way. So you can see what has happened. So I have successfully implemented several critical optimizations to your Power BI model. Then implemented changes, removed duplicate part tables. So you can now see that we have lesser number of tables as compared to what we started with. Then impact with 6% reduction. This is estimated, so we'll find out later. Then converted calculated column that we have in our all sales table into measure instead. And let's see some of the things. Bidirectional relationship has been removed. So let's check if that took place. So let me just click on refresh. Then I will go back into my table view. So you can see that I have just my all sales table now without having so many columns, calculated column like I have earlier. Also, let me go into my modeling. Now you can see that the bidirectional model is gone. It's gone. Now this model looks a lot more neater than the way it was, right? So you need to ensure that the modeling is right so that you don't cook beans, like I was saying earlier. Now this transform sample file is a Power Query file that shouldn't be here in the very first place, which is something that you need to actually implement it from Power Query. So once you delete this, then this other side of the relationship will be gone. But the earlier bidirectional relationship that we have here is gone already. So let's go back and see some of the things that was also done. Then we create the relationship between the all sales product ID, then optimize the measure as well with this. Then formatted some of these measures, hide unused tables and all of that. Then disable the auto date size and then remove redundant column as well. So what I then need to now is saying that the most impactful changes are now complete. The remaining manual step will be further optimized, your model performance. So I'll just ask you to document the implemented optimizations in a markdown file, and it should include the manual optimizations yet to be implemented. So let's just wait for it to document, give us a summary. It's going to give us a summary of what was implemented already, what needs to be done manually, and then the impact of what that is going to be. So let's just give it some few seconds. Then we have a proper documentation of the things that have been optimized for this report, and then what needs to be implemented manually for further optimization for this particular report. So any questions so far while we are waiting for the documentation to be updated? Yes, please, the light is recorded. So we are going to be uploading the recording to the YouTube later. Samuel Adebayo, yeah, your hand is up. I want to come up, Mike, and ask your question.
Good afternoon.
Yeah, good afternoon, sir.
Yeah. So I have two questions, right? My first question, I noticed whenever you want to connect MCP server, you have to open the Power BI file, right? So what
Yes.
happens in the case files are open? Does the MCP show the two instances and then you select one, or you can work on more than one concurrently? That's my first question. My second question is, I noticed everything you've done using the MCP server.
Sorry, I think your line is breaking. I heard the first question, but your line is not clear. It's just me.
Okay. Is it better now?
Yeah, very much better. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Yes. So for my second question, right, I said I noticed that the MCP server, what has been done majorly is around the modeling, like the DAX, the measures, calculated column, transformations and things like that, right? I want to ask, does it have the capability to like create visuals, or like adjust maybe settings or source, anything regarding like the actual visualization? Does it have that, or you have to like, okay, once you've done everything else using MCP, like the measures and calculated columns like that, then you then do the visualization yourself? So those are the two questions.
Okay. If you have multiple files, start on first question, answer the second question. If you have multiple files, Power BI file open, then it's going to list all the files first and then ask from you which one do you want to connect to. Do you understand? Then you connect to that one and then you continue your work. So that is fine. Now, regarding your second question, if this thing can actually create visuals, will you be happy? Then what happens to our work? Yeah, of course, it can create visuals, no doubt. For on the desktop, I've not tried that personally, but I know that I've used them. Copilot itself, not MCP, on Power BI service to create visual. But the visual that is going to create for you might not necessarily communicate or turn out the way you want it to be. But it's improving, it's getting smarter day by day. So we can try it on the call right now and see if it's going to create chat for it. But I've not seen anybody create chat with it anyway. So that's how I'm going to answer that question. I don't know if anybody has any other question. Okay, Lawrence.
All right, thank you very much. I have a question also.
There seems to be a lot of noise coming from your hand, Lawrence. I might have to mute you or something. Okay. Now you can unmute or you can drop. If you are sure it's better, you can unmute and ask your question.
I just want
to. No. Still a lot of noise. Maybe if you're using a headset or something, you might want to remove that to ask your question.
What about now?
Yeah, very much better, sir.
Thank you, sir. My comment is that it has been a while I've heard about this MCP server, and from this training, for me, I started following immediately I joined. And one thing I did was that I connected after downloading the three services from the GitHub, the Power BI MCP server, the
What
GitHub
extensions?
Copilot chat, and the GitHub Copilot. I connected it to a particular project I was working on, and that project always load. It's always take a longer period to load, right? So I decided to just try it with after I connected it using the chat, and to my surprise, I already have all what is wrong with this MCP server now. I can see all that is wrong with the with that dashboard at the moment now, including things that are wrong with the tables, those things that are wrong with the models, things that are wrong even on the metrics. I can see them here. And in the same vein, it also gives me a complete guideline on what is wrong and why they are wrong. For instance, now on the team view, it says it is active, team performance is the purpose. Now, this one is even caught my attention. That particular table was duplicated, so it tells me it's redundant. There's also another table. See, I think this is really an impactful training. I must say, really, I can see it now. So for me, just to go back to the main folder, it was even this when I was struggling to even locate where the file is. I got the what's it called now, the directory on my system. I wanted to open it, and it actually opened that file by itself when I supplied the properties of that document and the document name and the folder, and everything that is on is it's like it's working inside that document. Though I had to receive for me to try this out and see what can happen. Thank you very much. I mean, it's something to try out, everyone, honestly.
All right. I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I heard any question. You are just excited about what MCP server can do.
Yes. Okay. My question is: are you currently on the Copilot? Are you currently on the Pro version? Because I think I've already maxed out the free version anyway. I just want to confirm because I think I've been
Already.
since.
All right. That's very nice. So, JK.
Yo, thanks, Francis. My question is, I see you also in the or have been in the financial industry space. Now, the MCP, how is it permissible for use in real time within the office setting? Are there restrictions? Like some institutions wouldn't permit the use of artificial intelligence. From what you know and how you've operated, are there restrictions on the use of MCP?
All right. Thank you, JK. Of course, MCP is your own personal tool as a developer, as a Power BI developer, really. It does not have to do with anything. Because at the end of the day, what you need to do is imagine that you are building a report to monitor transaction, let's say in a bank or something. Yeah. All that concerns the bank is that you've created the report. How did you create that report? Is none of their business. Now, your question, security-wise, I think I have a slide in my presentation that takes care of that. Maybe I didn't get to it when I was presenting. Okay, let me see. Can you still see my screen?
I can.
All right. So now let me quickly talk about this since you are asking this question now, before we now continue. Security consideration. Now, Entra ID. Before we even start talking about Entra ID, MCP server as it is only sitting within your own laptop, your own device. It does not affect the integrity of the data in your organization. So until you now start to use the MCP remote server, then these are the security considerations you need to put in place. Of course, when you are using MCP remote server, let's say you as a report developer, I as a report consumer, then how do I connect into these reports? Of course, you know that for you to sign into your Teams, your Outlook, your whatever accounts within your organization, you need your at fabriccommunity.com domain to sign in. So that's the first level of security. If at all anybody is trying to connect into your remote server. Let's say you have your report published on your Power BI service, and then somebody needs to now access it with MCP server. If you don't have the login, you cannot connect to it. It's just like you are trying to consume a Power BI report with your Pro license. Then for you to consume that report, you need to have access to that organization in the very first place, right? And then another thing that you want to do is that, let's say the report that needs some low-level security, you want to ensure that low-level security is already in place, so that somebody that is not supposed to see the performance of team A is not seeing the performance of team B, or somebody that is like a manager. So low-level consideration needs to also be monitored on, or maybe networking. Maybe you have some complex networks, especially in banks where they have some of their data set on-prem. So whatever you are doing has to sit on that, inside that network. And then the isolation protocol. That this is what I've been clicking since I've been using it to allow, and then approve the modification and query, right? So your data is secured. You are the developer. Nobody has access to it. It is not as if your data point is actually being saved in the LLM itself. You know, remember when we started, we talked about there are 3 players here: the MCP server itself, which is the integrator between your desktop machine and the LLM. So the LLM does not necessarily have access into your data as it were. It's like a pseudo sort of access that you have. Maybe the way to explain it is like access that you have with your direct query, right? So whatever thing that you are thinking, as far as security is concerned, has been taken care of. Now, on the remote server, yes, some of these concerns are valid, especially if there is low-level security. But on your desktop, it is only you and you only that is working with your MCP server, not another person.
Okay. Thank you very much, Francis. I enjoyed your presentation, and I would even before then I got you on LinkedIn and sent a request. I hope to continue the conversation on LinkedIn.
Yeah, happy to connect.
Thank you.
So now let's go back to our development and see what is going on. Yes. Now the VS Code is done generating the complete documentation. So now the document includes the completed optimization, the things that you need to even do to improve your model performance further, and then the performance summary table. So let's go into the markdown file that was created. I'll just click on keep, just in case. Now this is the markdown file that was created for me. So let me close this so that we'll see better. So we can see that these are the completed optimizations, the actions that we're taking so that you don't lose track of things. This is the second one, also completed. These are completed actions for the optimization. Now, this is the point where you see the manual optimization that then you then need to go and do yourself. For example, you need to configure this managed relationship and change it. This cross filter, you need to also go and change it between all sales table and product table. Then once you do it, then you can expect this level of query performance, 10 to 30% improvement. And another thing that you need to do is you need to also improve this measure in our model. That's another one that you can do manually. So this is the improvement that is going to bring. Then this is another action that you can change. You can also format some of these measures so that they appear more humanly readable. This is another action that you can also take. For example, you can just this is already hidden. Then this query file, that was the transformation file also. So this is what you can do to it as well. And of course, it's even highlighting all the steps that you need to take to actually do those manual optimizations. So this is about 5 optimization that you can do manually already. 6, you can remove some of the redundant column. For example, we have that composite column in our model. I think if I go back to my table view, this model is a composite model. That is what it's asking us to remove, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, that's it, the zip key model. So recommendation, keep it actively used in Visual, otherwise remove it. So once you go through this documentation, 7 manual optimizations, and then you can expect that your model size and your performance will be improved greatly. So this is the overall performance summary of what has been done. So priority list, priority action checklist is also here. Then additional recommendation, current structure is good, dimension, blah, blah, blah. Consider adding this dimension with more attributes if needed. Of course, if you have one column, then minimize calculated column. We've done that. Then these are various recommendations that we have, basically. Then we can also group the measures into like a folder, like I did with the first demo, then test this recommendation, and of course it added even like some reference resource that you can check. So now let me go back into my Power BI file. Then I will just click on save. I will do apply later so that I won't take time. Now I've saved this file, then I'm going to just close it once it's done saving. Now it's saved. Now let me just close this guy. And I'll go back to my file area. Now you can see that the sizing of this file has reduced from 197 to 176. Prior to this class, when I did it, I was able to get up to about 50,000 kilobytes of model size as compared to what I have now. I'm guessing maybe I've taken some of the token that I need to do the optimization as well. So this is what you get when you try to use MCP server. It saves you a lot of time. It helps you with your development. It helps you with your optimization as well. So these are some of the use cases that you have for MCP server. And of course, these tools are going to get smarter and smarter over time. So when somebody is saying, oh, can you deliver this report today? Then you know that, oh, we can deliver the report in a far shorter time than you can from when you're not using your MCP server. So with your AI in your hand, then it becomes a tool to increase and boost your productivity. I'm not sure if you have any question. Just say a comment, don't modify your database. All right, any other question? Patai, you want to add anything at this point so that we can just wrap up this month challenge? If you are not in our group already, you can follow us on LinkedIn, join our group so that you get updates in real time. Patai, are you still there?
Yes, I'm here. There's a question in the chat from Yomi. You want to take that?
Will this require any licensing on the long run or any case of running out of your prompt token? Yeah, at some point, like already, because I've used it already today. For example, now when I did this optimization before this call, I was able to optimize up to like the size to about 50,000 as I was saying. But again, I guess I'm using a lot of token already today. So if you try these things some other time, then it will be better, because if you are using a paid licensing, then you know that paid is different from free. Like you already know that your ChatGPT Pro and then your ChatGPT Free, they don't perform the same way. But I mean, you don't build development and you don't do optimization every day. So I think what you have daily should be enough for you, unless you know that you have a lot of workload. Yeah.
A follow-up question to that, Francis. You know, there's a way you can switch the LLM model. If you max out on one model, can you switch to another one or continue, or it doesn't work like that?
Sometimes it does work, sometimes it just breaks everything, and then that one will use your chat history. And then another thing is that you want to use like a lower set of model. For example, I'm using Sonnet 4.5 for the cloud models. Now Opus and then Cloud IQ is their latest model. These ones consume a lot more tokens than the lower models. Now, if I'm also using, let's say, a GPT model 4.0, 4.1, they consume more tokens than the other. And then GPT 5.2 now. So these ones consume a lot more tokens than the other. But these are just some of the ways you can actually optimize your token usage when it comes to Copilot.
Thank you very much, Francis. And this has been an amazing please, if you are excited or if you learn anything from this, from today's session, can you please show, whether by show of hands, whether by typing in the chats, whether by anyhow, I mean, just I think today has been very amazing. I personally learned a lot. I've not had any hands-on, what's it called? Any hands-on usage with MCP servers, but this is, I'm definitely going to go, I'm definitely going to go try it immediately after this. And I think this has been really, really impactful. And we've clearly demonstrated that there is a lot going on. And you can see, it just basically buttressed the first session we had, that imagine someone that has this kind of tool and another person that is trying to do this manually. All of the things that Brazil was able to do in like 30 minutes, and that's because he's even training. If he was not training and he's just doing it on his own, maybe all of this would take him 10, 15 minutes to do. Imagine if, I remember that this challenge, we did it like the last challenge we did late last year. Some people spend 3 days, some people spend 4 days or 5 days before you finish all the optimization. And imagine if you can do all of this in 1 hour or 2 hours. So it tells us that the people that are the developers that are going to be leading the BI initiative in Oregon are not the people that are the people that are using AI smartly to work more efficiently. Francis is able to navigate all of this quickly because he understands what he needs to do. He understands the context. He understands the data. It doesn't mean that anybody that don't have all of this knowledge can just go into MCP server and start using it. You're going to confuse yourself. You're going to confuse your model. You're going to create more chaos. But because he has that understanding, he's able to do all of this. So AI is going to make us smarter and it's going to make us better. It's high time we start exploring and utilizing the elements that helps us improve our work and help us improve our workload. I think that is the context that I've been able to establish today. All right. So if you are joining us for the first time, this is the Microsoft Fabric Nigerian community. We hold this meetup once every month. And this week's month session is virtual. Next month, we may go back to our physical hangout. So if you learned anything, please share all of this on your social media. Tag the Microsoft Fabric Community Nigeria. Maybe Francis, you can also drop our links, or Okwem can help us with that. You can drop our link to our community pages either on LinkedIn and the like. Follow us. This session will also be recorded or posted on YouTube. All right, follow us on YouTube as well. Let's keep the community going.